Spark something uncommon this holiday with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods. The busy holiday season is here, and Uncommon Goods makes it less stressful with incredible hand-picked gifts for everyone on your list, all in one spot. Gifts to spark joy, wonder, delight, and that's exactly what I wanted feeling. Hey, y'all, I ordered a super cool piece. It's a candle with a sculpture of an LSU Tiger Stadium on top of it. And each officially licensed laser cut wooden replica features up to 4 layers of detail, creating a bird's eye view of a specific football field, seating section, and more. And every label includes your stadium's name, the team's logo, and school location. And it has a coconut, soy, vegan wax infused with sandalwood smell that creates tailgates and touchdown scent profile, reminiscent of game day. It's invigorating like fresh cut grass and nostalgic like smoke from a pre-game grill, and calming like the crisp autumn air of a new semester on campus. Y'all, I love it. I have it at the base of my TV, and I'm ready to watch the Tigers play on Saturday night, right? Uncommon Goods. Look, when you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. And many of their handcrafted products are made in small batches. So shop now before they sell out this holiday season. Uncommon Goods looks for products that are high quality, unique, and often handmade or made in the U.S. They have the most meaningful, out of the ordinary gifts anywhere. They even have gifts you can personalize. From holiday hosts and hostess gift to the coolest finds for kids to hits for everyone from the book lovers to diehard sports fans. Uncommon Goods has something for everyone, not the same old selections you can just find anywhere. And with every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. They've donated more than $3 million to date. So to get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/RLRC. That's uncommongoods.com/RLRC for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, we're all out of the ordinary.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to or during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your door, your running's over, that's for sure.
Warning, this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, may contain descriptions of acts of violence or that of a sexual nature and should be for people that are 18 years or older. Heed my warning, people. I do not get the facts of these cases off of the internet or from some television show. The facts I'm retelling you were presented to me by the victims of the crimes or the perpetrators who committed the crimes against the victims. My descriptions of the crime scenes, what I saw with my own 2 eyes. If you're going to get offended, please turn this podcast off now. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Woody Overton. And y'all, we have been frozen down in the deep south, and we missed a couple of Real Life, Real Crime dailies this week, and we missed the, bloody Angola. But I want to give a shout out to Jim Chapman, my producer and co-partner on Real Life, Real Crime Daily, for stepping up and filling in and making the magic happen even when we couldn't make it happen. Mike was frozen in New Orleans, and I was frozen up north, and Jim, fortunately, only lives about a mile from the studio. So thank you, Jim. I think you did some great episodes. But today we're going to be concluding Louisiana's worst serial killer. Now, when I left y'all last, I just told you about the second set of gruesome murders, and that was in the Cheney household. So let's go back to that, okay? Now, that was on July 18th, 19th, 1985. So take yourself back at the time. No cell phones, no DNA. Everything was done with fingerprints. I'm talking about working crime scenes, fingerprints and stuff like that, and chemical analysis on different pieces of evidence. And when they were working that scene, y'all, they found some duct tape in the alley behind they being the police, in the alley behind the Cheney residence, and the duct tape appeared to be the same duct tape that was used to gag Carletha Culvert. They did what they did back then. They chemically tried to match it. The duct tape came back and was found to be chemically identical to the duct tape that was used to gag Carletha Culvert. And the report said the pieces of tape either originated from the exact same roll or from separate rolls made by the same company. But check this out. It was a professional grade tape used by plumbers and other professionals and was unavailable at retail stores. Now, I don't really remember if they had Home Depots and shit back in 1985, so I'm thinking that they didn't, or they weren't really everywhere like they are now, or Lowe's or whatever. So they would have had plumbers that use this would have had to go naturally get it from their plumber stores. All right, I also told you about the two victims. Well, no, not victims. They were still the two survivors in those murders, right? So the cops, that's Marla and Tamika, and the cops had them examined by doctors, but they really both later on when the trial would come up, both sides agreed to not let them testify because they were mentally handicapped. Tamika, they interviewed her several times and by the police and the doctors. And back then, y'all, sodium pentothal was a deal, a true serum, right? They'd shoot people up with it, and sometimes it would work, and sometimes it wouldn't. I guess like the polygraph. They used it to try to get her to recall, facts about what she may have witnessed. The problem was she gave different stories, and the majority of the stories that she told, she said that one killer broke into the back door carrying a knife with holes in it and a rope. And she drew a picture of the knife, which matched the knife that was missing from the other murders I told you about, Deborah Ford's house. But she also gave different statements and said the killer and the ladies broke in at night, and they put flies and spiders on the face of Billy Joe Harris. When the cops first arrived on the scene, they did find flies on Billy Joe Harris, and the coroner, when he came in, found evidence during the autopsy of roach bites on Billy Harris's face, but they were post-mortem. So, they can't really use it one way or another, and they weren't ever admitted in evidence in the trial. All right, let's fast forward to August the 5th, 1987. Again, this pretty tight time frame, y'all. And there was a 73-year-old man named William T. Code, and he lived at 641 West 66th Street in Shreveport. And remember, I told y'all that's top western corner of Louisiana, largest city out there in the North Louisiana and close to the Texas border. But on August the 4th, 1987, William Code worked in his yard with his two grandsons of a friend, Emertine Williams. Now, they weren't his grandsons. He was Emmett Williams' grandsons. Now, the two boys were 8-year-old Eric Williams and 12-year-old Joe Robertson. And they worked all day in William Code's yard. William Code took care of his shit right, raking up the leaves and whatever happens. And probably cutting grass in August, but cleaning up the clip-ins. I mean, William Code took pride in his shit. So they worked until 8 p.m. Well, South Louisiana in the summertime, that's when it starts to get dark, around 8:30 up to 9 o'clock at night. Miss Williams was called, and the boys wanted to spend a night at William Code's house. So they called Miss Williams, the boys' grandmother, and she, over the phone, she said, yeah. They said, hey, can we spend the night? And they'd done this numerous times, y'all. That's like, I guess, a night out for the boys, right? And they trusted Mr. Code and all that. The family did. And they called and, hey, Mom or Grandma, can we spend the night at Mr. Code's house? They were going to chill. And I'm sure he'd cook us some supper and all that. And she gave them permission. And they had, like I said, they had done this many times in the past. Well, night goes by. Next morning comes, and guess what happens? The boys never came home. And so Miss Williams, was like, what the fuck, right? And where are they at? This is unusual. No big deal, though. I mean, they all live in the same neighborhood. So she walks to William Code's residence that afternoon. She gave him plenty of time. And again, there were no cell phones and all this or social media to hit them up and say, hey, where's my kids at? But when she got there, she noticed that the doors were locked and there were still burglar bars on the windows and the doors, which kept her from gaining entrance. This is typical in any neighborhood that's questionable. If you could afford it, you put wrought iron bars on your windows and wrought iron exterior doors on your doors, and it just basically keeps people from just busting open your windows of your door. But she's looking at the house, she's checking it out, and she's looking at the windows and the doors, and she can't find any sign of forced entry. Nothing's been broken into. Everything's locked up, and she knocked on the front door and the back door, and nobody answered. But the strange thing was, she could hear music playing from inside. Right? Well, sound familiar? So what does she do? She goes to one of the windows and she looks through. Now, she looks through the window. She's like, holy shit. She saw something she never thought she would see. And it was the bound foot or tied up foot of Joe Robinson. Right? So she freaks out and she ran home and she called the police. And then she got her brother and her niece and her granddaughter to go back to William Code's house. And they had a key. And after using the key to open the burglar bars on one of the windows, Miss Williams and her brother saw the bodies of William Code and the two boys. And they climbed in and they saw all three of them, and all three of them were in separate rooms, dead. Now, pay attention to the rest of this. All falls into place. So Joe Robinson was found laying face down on the living room couch. Okay. And he had been struck in the forehead with a blow that was severe enough to have dazed him, and he had bruises on his shoulders, beneath the skin, and over both collarbones, right? So he took a beating. His ankles were tied with a white plastic cord, and each end of the cord was tied around the ankle, and there was that gap in between. Remember I told you on the other murders, the gap in between, which makes it look like the pair of handcuffs? A length of the same cord had been used to tie his hands together behind his back, with one end of the plastic cord tied to one wrist and the other end tied to other wrist, again, like handcuffs. And there was also a piece of cord that was loose. It was around his neck, held like a gag, y'all. And it doubled the length of the cord. It was used to strangle him, okay? But it was loose. So evidently they strangled him and let go of it, and it was loose around his neck. And here's the kicker. This will remind you of the other ones. Now, he's a boy, right? Remember, there's the two boys that were helping him clean the yard, and they spent the night. Joe Robinson was only wearing a pair of underwear, which had been turned inside out. Remember the other murders, okay? Now, the other boy, Eric Williams, was found laying face down between two twin beds in a small bedroom where he had apparently been drugged from one of the beds, and he had plastic rope in which held a gag around his neck. Okay, his hands had been tied identically the same way that the other boy's hands were tied in a handcuff ligature. It's just, y'all, if you practice to tie this handcuff ligature, you couldn't do it if you hadn't done it in a couple of months or something. It's just a very unique signature, if you will. And one of his ankles was tied with this cord, but then it ran out. Like, so whoever had cut the cord and tied up handcuff ligatures, they were going to tie, basically hog time, and they ran out of cord. So the killer had then evidently took an electrical cord to finish binding Eric Williams or the young boy's ankles together. And a second length of cord had been used to strangle him. There were no signs that a struggle took place, and he was only wearing a pair of underwear. Now, strangulation, I told you, is very personal. It takes, a minute and a half to 3 minutes. I don't know if he had him under duress or something where he didn't struggle, so you tie him up and strangle him out, because otherwise certainly he would have fought for his life, even though he was a kid. So now, the elderly gentleman, William Code, when they found him, he's laying face down on his bed, and he's dressed in a dressing gown. Dressing gown, y'all, even men wore them, and some men still do. Basically like a single piece robe thing that you sleep in. But his ankles were tied up with an electrical cord, and then the cord was brought up the front of his legs and tied to his wrists, which were behind his back. So basically, hog tied him again, y'all. Where they were tied behind his wrist, guess what? Again, that signature handcuff ligature, the loop to loop where it looks like the handcuffs in the middle. And check this out. Just like the two boys, he had another cord around his neck. This one was a telephone cord, and it held a gag in place over his mouth. Well, why would you gag someone? Because they're still alive when you're doing this to them, right? So Mr. William Code, the cops come out and they work it, and during his autopsy, it showed that he had been struck with a heavy blow to the side of his head, which could have alone caused his death. And he had hemorrhages in his brain, which were consistent with being beaten about the head with a fist. But check it out. He'd been stabbed 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in his chest, and 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in his back, and another time in a major artery in his upper right arm, all with a long knife, right? And the coroner said, hey, any of these wounds could have been fatal, what killed him, but he died from the total cumulative effect of all his wounds, all right? And the crime lab would end up testifying at the trial that they found medium velocity blood spatter on the wall in William Code's bedroom where he was killed. Y'all, medium means, when I told you when you stab someone or you shoot someone, where the X wound is, or if you pull back out, what the cast off part, the first blood comes out slower, then the rest of the blood comes out faster, and that's what gives you your spots. The medium blood spatter means that it's not a total big spray, so it's less force is being used when these are done. I think that's why they determined that it wasn't necessarily any one particular stab wound that killed him, but it was all of them in total, plus the brain injuries that he had. So guess what happens? Our friend Dr. McCormick comes back, and he's like, hey, this is definitely, again, one dude's responsible for the murders, all right? Because the two boys were tied in the same way. They were gagged in the same way, and they were killed in the same way. And the materials from the house were used to tie up William Code. Now, Dr. McCormick testified that the victims were probably killed in the order in which they were found, because there was no sign of forced entry. And they said that the boy that Robinson that died in the living room, was murdered in the living room, he probably let the killer in the front door, and he was then, basically subdued by the strong blow to his head, which would have knocked him kind of cockeyed, if you will. Then he was gagged, tied, and strangled. And, of course, his underwear were turned inside out. Then the killer moves on to Williams, who was in the front bedroom, and McCormick says, hey, look, he was probably asleep. He was in the twin beds. He was asleep, and because there was no signs of struggle. But then he was tied up and killed. And McCormick goes on further, and he said, look, there was no element of overkill in the two boys, the two young boys, and no knife was used on them. But Mr. William Code, this was personal. He said overkill was definitely present, and William Code was also beaten repeatedly over the head, and he was rolled front and back to be stabbed many more times. Meaning, y'all, when he's down, he's got him tied up. After he's beating him around the head, not only juked him the 5 times, then he turns him over and jukes him another 7 times, right? And there's way many more times than he would have been necessary to kill him. That's what Dr. McCormick said. And Dr. McCormick said that this showed an emotional relationship between the victim and the murderer. All right. So when the cops processed the scene, as they always do, there was no money found inside the house. Although, just like in the past murders I told you about, it was found. They traced back the day before and what William Code had been doing, et cetera. And William Code had cashed numerous checks totaling between $400 and $600 the day before he was murdered. Also missing from the residence was a small caliber pistol. Now, the cops did find a knife and a set of keys in a storm drain about 600 feet from the residence. And the knife was a match to a set found in William Code's kitchen. And one of them was missing, but it was a match, right? And check this out. The keys they find matched William Code's front door. Okay? So there you have it. Now, when they're doing this, like I said, y'all, there's no Ring doorbell cameras and all that back then. It was just good old-fashioned boots on the ground police work. That's how they found the knife and the keys in the storm drain, and obviously someone discarded them there. And the previous murders I told you about, they found the duct tape in an alley. Well, it's just good old-fashioned police work. Boots on the ground. They're out doing what they do. Well, the first thing you're going to do is knock on everybody's doors, right? So they find a neighbor. His name was Donald Ray Johnson. And He said that he saw a guy named Nathaniel Code who had exited Williams Code residence the night before after 8 p.m. And now this is the night of the murder, y'all. So Johnson says he sees Nathaniel Code, walk out of the house. He shuts the inner door, and then he shuts the iron bar door over it, right? And he shook them to make sure that they were locked. And he walked out to the vehicle. Code drove down the street toward Johnson, and he sees him, and he stops and says, "Hey, man, what's up?" And Code had a female passenger in his car, which he introduced to Donald Ray Johnson. "Hey, this is my new wife." And then he just drove off. All right. Well, why do you think he did that? Yeah, I'm thinking, oh shit, he's leaving the scene of this murder, and he's like, oh, there's a witness, and I'm gonna just stop and say hi, right? So Donald Ray Johnson thought it was strange as fuck. He's like, why did he do that? And he just thought it was unusual because Mr. William Code, not Nathaniel, y'all, that left the scene, the murder victim, William Code always walked his guests to the front door to make sure that he locked the security doors from the inside. And he also stated that he knew William Code would not allow Nathaniel Code in his house. And because Johnson had been there 2 weeks before when William Code was in his yard and Nathaniel Code came up and was like, "Hey, grandfather, I need to borrow some more money." And William was like, dude, I've been loaning you money. You've never paid me back. And, I'm not loaning you more shit. And Nathaniel was like, "Come on, Grandpa, just give me some, I just need $50. And he's like, "No, bro, I've been loaning you money and I don't know what you're doing with it. I know it's not good. And you never paid me back. And I'm not loaning you any more money." So another guy, John Huckabee, who was an electrician who had installed security lighting at the Code's residence. Again, this 4 home camera systems, y'all. This has been the lights, like when you walk up, the lights turn on. But he told the cops about a conversation he had had with William Code, the murder victim, in which William Code told him he was afraid of his grandson, Nathaniel Code, because Hey, ladies, are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? Well, you're definitely not alone. There are more than 1,000 hormone disruptors living in our environment right now. It's in your food, your water, the air you breathe, the clothes you wear, your skincare products. They all mess with your hormones. Then there's the natural hormone changes your body goes through, premenopause, menopause. And while it's a natural process, it doesn't mean you have to suffer through it. The good news is you don't have to suffer through it anymore, because now you have Hormone Harmony, a formula made only with herbal ingredients that are shown to reduce hormonal symptoms in women of all ages. Hormone Harmony is not just a hormone supporting supplement, it's become a phenomenon. Women can't stop talking about it on social media. A bottle of Hormone Harmony is sold every 24 seconds. And the biggest benefit? Well, my wife says it makes her feel like her own self again. And that's what women mention over and over in the reviews. And there are over 30,000 reviews for Hormone Harmony. And for a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use code RLRC at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC for 15% off today. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC. Hey, y'all, let me tell you about Gobble. All Gobble meal kits are pre-prepped. That means less work for you and less waste in your kitchen. Their meal kits include everything you need so you can save time at the store or just skip that trip entirely. I got the box in and I had 3 different meals. I had a Kung Pao chicken, crispy fish tacos, and a beef bourguignon, however you say it. But let me tell you about the classic beef bourguignon. Look, it came with beef pot roast and a beef broth concentrate, red wine demi-glaze, cremini mushrooms, cipollone onions, mashed potatoes, baby carrots, and rosemary thyme butter. It was so easy to make. Literally like 15 minutes it took Cindy. And let me tell you something. All the dishes were fire, but this thing was like a taste explosion in my mouth. It's just unreal. We've got to spend more time together and more time doing the things we love because everything came in this one single box right to my door. So see what a difference God will make for your household. Right now, they're offering my listeners a fantastic limited time deal. You get $120 off across 4 boxes plus free shipping and free cookies. And let me tell you, those cookies, I ate one that was sin baked and it was delicious. Go to gobble.com/real life. That's GOBBLE.com/real life for $120 off your first 4 boxes. This offer is not available on the home site, so don't miss out. This is genius. It's taste explosions in your mouth like you never had. Nathaniel Code had attempted to borrow money from him in the past, and it had been refused him because his grandson had never paid him back. But I mean, this guy's just installing his lights, and he was like, dude, why are you installing the lights? What's up? I mean, see, you got security bars and all that. He was like, I'm kind of scared of my grandson, Nathaniel, y'all. Back to the cops work in the crime scene, and this is after the bodies are found. They're working the crime scene. Well, guess what happens? This dude, Nathaniel Code, walks up to the cops, and he says, hey, that's my grandfather, right? And I'm his grandson. And he said, hey, just last night, Grandpa called me, and he said it was around 10:30 or 11 o'clock. And Grandpa asked me, and he said, hey, can you come over here to my house? Because there's some people hanging around my house, and I'm not comfortable with them. Can you come over here and check it out? So Nathaniel said, yeah, Grandpa, I'll be loving you, Pops. I'm going to take care of you. So Nathaniel Code said he went to his grandfather's house at approximately 2 a.m. Now, if you get the call at 11 a.m., your grandfather's like, they got bad dudes hanging around your house. Why would you wait till 2 a.m. to go over there? But he says, I went over to Papa's house around 2 a.m. on the morning of August the 5th. And he said, my grandfather let me in the house, opened the door, right? Pretty sure that didn't happen. That little boy let him in. Nathaniel said, hey, look, I checked the house, and then I went outside and I walked around the house. Like, hey, I'm looking for any bad guys or any suspicious people. And he said, you know what? I didn't see anything. He said, then I got on my bicycle and I left. He said, but you know what though? I was kind of scared for Grandpa. So I turned around and I rode back on my bicycle again. And I checked outside the house again. I didn't see anything. And then I just rode my bicycle home. Well, the cops are like, this motherfucker's full of shit, right? And I would have done the same thing. But you don't want to Mirandize him right then. This dude approached you unsolicited. Technically, he's not a suspect at the time, so you don't have to Mirandize him, et cetera. But we're like, oh, yeah, you know what? You're pretty helpful. This shit I would have done. You're pretty helpful. Why don't you come on down to the police station and let's get a statement from you, meaning we're about to get you off your turf and get you on ours because you're suspicious as fuck. So Nathaniel Code, he was like, okay, I'll come down there. I'll help y'all. It's my grandfather and shit. So they get him to the police station to give a statement. And I mean, by his own admission, he was apparently the last person to see his grandfather alive. But the cops became suspicious of Code because during their talking, they were like, well, what'd you do when you went inside the house? He said, well, and he was very specific, y'all. He said, well, when I was in there, I touched the vacuum and then I touched the fan and a humidifier. And you know what? I also touched the phone while I was at Papa's house. And guess what, y'all?
when they worked the crime scene, the cops, when I told you the two boys were tied up with the cords and the grandfather was tied up with the cords and they were strangled and gagged with the cords, the different cords, guess what items these cords have been cut from? The vacuum, the fan, the humidifier, and the phone. Each one of these cords was used in some part of these brutal murders, right? And they're like, you just fucked up, homie. But I guess Nathaniel Code thought he was smarter, right? But he was trying to explain why his fingerprints would be on these items. So cops are like, hey, you know what? What were you wearing yesterday? And Nathaniel told me, they're like, where are those clothes at? He was like, they're at my house. He said, well, you don't mind if we go on over there and get them, do you? Well, now Nathaniel was like, holy fuck. Kind of ended up buying here, but I'm smarter than these motherfuckers. They can't get anything off my clothes. So the cops go with Nathaniel to his house, and they took the clothes and the shoes that he had worn the day before. Now, remember, this is witnessed by the neighbor down the street that he stopped and introduced this female to. But while they're working with Nathaniel Code, his fingerprints and palm prints were taken, and guess what? They were matched to the latent palm prints, which were found at the Cheney homicide. And then, I would have done it earlier, but then they informed him of his Miranda rights. And they questioned him about the Cheney homicides, and it didn't take long, and they were like, fuck you, you're under arrest. Okay, so the crime lab had found on those clothes, y'all, on the tennis shoes worn by Nathaniel Code by his own admission to his grandfather's house, they found the same medium velocity blood spatter on his tennis shoes. The crime lab was able to say, hey, this is definitely human blood, but there wasn't enough blood to do any type of typing. Which back in then, that's all you got, a type A, B, or whatever, O positive, whatever it's called, and they didn't have DNA. So, well, now Code's under arrest. So the cops go back to his house, and they talk to his wife, and they were like, you know what? Do you mind if we search your house? And she was like, okay, go ahead. So she signed the waiver for them, the consent form for them to search it. And when they're searching the house, the cops found several cut electrical cords and remember that professional grade duct tape I told you about from the Cheney murder, in the alleyway of the Cheney murder? They found the same thing. And guess what? Nathaniel Code had been working as a plumber. All right. So, also, they started digging into Nathaniel Code's past, and they found out that he had been, in the days just before the murders, he had approached several different people and asked them to borrow money. All right, the day before the bodies were found, and actually, within less than 12 hours before the bodies were found. He went to Shreveport's narcotics officers and offered his services as a CI, or paid confidential informant. And he said, hey, I can give you drug dealers, but you got to give me $100, right? And they agreed. They were trying to work cases, trying to find the drug dealers. And so on the same day that the bodies were found, Nathaniel Code called his cousin Beatrice Holmes, and he invited her over, and the two shared a gram of cocaine and Nathaniel Code supplied. And then they went to the liquor store, and Code purchased some beer. And on the way home, he bought a second gram of cocaine, and Holmes and Nathaniel Code were shooting the cocaine up when they got a telephone call, which was when he was informed that his grandfather had been murdered. Now, how fucking cold-blooded are you? Go murder these two little boys and your grandfather, and then you're going to go and act like you're working for the police and go get some cocaine, and you're shooting it up with your old lady or this lady, this girl, your cousin, and then you go get some beer and you get some more cocaine. And I mean, self-explanatory, right? So, Beatrice Holmes would later on testify, y'all, that the gram of cocaine sold for approximately $150 at the time. Well, we know that the day before he had asked for $100 from narcotics officers. Now he bought $300 worth of cocaine and beer in the same day. Money was missing from his grandfather's residence, approximately $400 to $600. Right? So, y'all, he's arrested, and I'm gonna save you a lot of pain and effort, et cetera. But they go to trial, and he is definitely found guilty, and he's sentenced to murder. But that's not all I'm going to tell you about. This was one of the first cases that I knew of, and I knew this when I read this case because of Leah Marie, that the FBI introduced profiling. Right? Well, they brought in Special Agent Douglas, and I read this guy's books. He was like the grandfather of profiling of the FBI. And he testified as an expert in the field of criminal investigative analysis. And listen to what he said, y'all. This is going to trip you out. He said there's two types. He said there's a difference between modus operandi, which is MO, and the ritual aspects of the crimes of a serial killer, okay? Modus operandi is a learned behavior, which can change as the criminal learns and it gets smarter and adapts their behavior to fit a particular situation. Like, let me get to the ritual. The ritual aspects of a crime never change, and they are linked to the criminal's internal need to do certain things. And Douglas was convinced the murders were the work of one person. Douglas also acknowledged that these crimes had modus operandi dissimilarities in the point of entry, meaning that he gained the entry to the houses in different ways, and the weapons used, and the time sequence in between killings. But he said the crimes had several identical ritual aspects, and the most important being the distinctive handcuff ligature, y'all. Remember that I'd never even heard of that before. I know what it is because I've seen it, but I couldn't do one if I tried. But he said the most important ritual aspect, which is something that the serial killer can't control themselves from doing, like some of them it's rape or sodomy or whatever, but his was, there was never any in Nathaniel Code shit, there was never any proof that he did anything sexual to his victims. But he always used this handcuff ligature. In fact, Special Agent Douglas said he had never seen this type of ligature before, nor had any crime enforcement personnel he consulted with on the case. He said in addition to the unique way the ligatures were tied, that Douglas noted that the use of electrical appliances from inside the residences was so unique were the bindings that he stated if you put all those cases together in one pile, you would look at it and say, this all happened at one crime scene. This is one instance. And he went on to note like Vivian Cheney and William Code were tied in the exact same identical manner, right? And we know it's different crime scenes. He said another ritual aspect of the murders that Douglas recognized was the killer's need for manipulation, domination, and control over his victims, which is obvious by the hog tying, et cetera. But he said also the placement of the victims in different rooms was consistent with this ritual. Like the position of Deborah Ford, y'all, and the position of Carletha Cheney were almost identical, even though it's two different separate households. Douglas also noted the aspect of overkill present in each crime scene, i.e. the victims were not just stabbed, they were almost decapitated. Another ritual aspect was the predominant use of a knife. So prevalent were the case's ritual aspects that Douglas testified, it is not even a difficult case for us. We believe to show the signature aspect. Each law enforcement officer that visited the three crime scenes was convinced the murders were the work of the same person. So naturally, back to it. You remember the National Guardsman I told you was running late at night, and he would testify on the trial too. He knew Nathaniel Code. He knew what his name was, and the other person that saw him on the block that night, they knew him. And guess what? Nathaniel Code had been standing in the crowd at every one of the crime scenes, just like Dr. McCormick had said. And you know what they did, y'all? They sentenced his ass to death, right? And they naturally, they found him guilty of the first-degree murders, and then you have to have the aggravating circumstances. Now, the aggravating circumstances in this case were he was committing robberies during the homicides and the multiple homicides, and the age of the victims, and there's a traumatic form of death. Like they just testified that having your throat slit 6 times would definitely be painful and a horrible way to die. So, and of course, it goes to the penalty phase, and they present all this. And for once, they didn't use the craziness theory. Like they said, Nathaniel Code actually was a pretty smart dude, above average intelligence, no schizophrenia, none of that shit, which, really certainly didn't help him. He was just a fucking killer. I mean, but you know what's so weird about it, y'all? Think about the underwear turned inside out, but there's no sexual motive. And I don't know, who knows where he learned that handcuff ligature from, but every one of his victims, all of his victims, he cut cords from inside the house, took the time to tie them up. He moved the bodies around. He made some of them watch what he did to the other ones, and repositioned the bodies, the signature cords, turning the underwear inside out, and the overkill on at least one of the victims in each house. It's a bad dude, y'all. I mean, like Vivian Cheney, making her watch him murder her daughter and then dragging her into the bathroom. And even though he stabbed the shit out of her and everything else, he drowned her while he was strangling her. Just pure evil. And he was ultimately, they came back and said that he didn't deserve to breathe in the penalty phase, meaning that he was sentenced to bloody Angola, and they put him on death row. And as always, they get all the appeals process, and I could read you the 50-something ways he says that the cops violated him and the judge fucked up and the lawyers fucked up and all that. Well, you know what? They gave him the death penalty. Well, let me tell you a little bit about him. Nathaniel Robert Code Jr. was born on March the 12th, 1956, and he was 29 years old when he committed the Cheney murders on July 19th, 1985, right? And again, he was given extensive tests, and the test revealed no organic brain disorder. He had above normal intelligence. He can distinguish right from wrong and was able to cooperate intelligently in his own defense. And he has no apparent mental or physical impairments. Y'all, that's just very, very rare. Every one of these cases I read, y'all, they always come out and try to say, oh, he's this and was abused as a kid and blah, blah, blah. And, whatever, they didn't do it. I mean, they said the defense put somebody on and said he had borderline personality disorder. Well, fuck, I'm borderline personality, everything, I can assure you, but I don't go around killing people. But they sentenced me, y'all, and as I sit here and tell you this story, guess what? He is still alive on death row. So let's figure it out. That's 84, 94, 2004, 14, 24. That's 40 fucking years this piece of shit's been alive on death row. Well, guess what's happening? State of Louisiana Jeff Landry's now the governor, and he was fighting our past governor, John Bell Edwards, who ultimately came out in the end and said, I don't believe in the death penalty, and I'm going to pardon all these fuckers or get them off of death row. Jeff Landry was the attorney general. He challenged that. He followed every step of the way. He got it where that couldn't happen. And then John Bell Edwards just comes out and says, I've been basically prolonging this since Gerald Bordelon, y'all. Go listen to the original Real Life, Real Crime episode, Murder Me Now. Gerald Bordelon was the last person executed in the state of Louisiana, and he waived all his appeals. It was 2012 or 13. He waived all his appeals. But since then, the state of Louisiana has not executed anyone because John Bell Edwards took office. And this is not a political statement, it's a fucking fact. John Bell Edwards took office, and it just wouldn't let him happen. You know, he gave stays, and then he said it was about they couldn't get the medicines to put them to sleep or whatever they do. And ultimately, his last 2 months in office, he just came out and said, you know what? I've been doing this because I don't believe in a death penalty. Well, I don't care what you believe in, and a lot of people don't believe in a death penalty, and I get that. But if it had been your family member who had been stabbed, your young kid who had been stabbed, 13, 15 times, and throat slit 6 times, and then it take the time after that to turn his underwear or his underoos inside out, and he's hog-tied. You come home and you see your kid like that, you'd have a different position, I do believe. So, new sheriff in town, Jeff Landry, got sworn in last week, and all those people I've been telling you about, and thank you to Leah Marie again for this one, because this is a good one, a good example. All those people. Now, the one good thing about them being on death row all these years is they've exhausted all their appeals, the majority of them. The one here from Livingston Parish, him and his lover took the little boy and tortured him, brutally raped him, and shot him in the head like a dog and left him on the riverbank here. That dude's the longest running death row inmate in the state of Louisiana. I can't remember his name. He's a piece of shit. He doesn't deserve his name said. But his partner died when he was on death row from fucking old age and cancer and shit. You know, these dudes have been down 40 plus years. Their victims didn't get that, right? Jeff Landry about to make those wheels turn, and I will be bringing you updates on those cases as they happen. I want to tell a story, y'all. I think it's tragic, but I think it's even more tragic. We've been paying for this asshole to breathe all this time. So I'm going to conclude this episode. I love and appreciate each and every one of y'all. Patreon, convicts, Apple subscribers, thank you so much. Y'all, there's more bonus episodes being locked up. Now they are going to be recorded in video also. And if you can't be a subscriber, I get it. I thank you for listening. You know, I love and appreciate each and every one of you lifers. Thank you for sharing and liking and leaving us reviews. And we've just been real blessed, y'all. It's because of y'all. I mean, we've won everything and all that. I'm going to go ahead and let a part of the cat out of the bag on the TV show. Not my own TV show, which is in the talks, right? But there is an hour-long episode of Cold Case Files coming out real soon, in which I'm featured, and I will give you the details as soon as I can give you the date. But LOPA, Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency, you know, it's my jam. They save lives every single day, and I keep getting more messages from more people who are alive because somebody took the time and signed up to be an organ donor and gave the gift of life. And you don't have to be from the state of Louisiana to sign up, y'all. You can be from a lifer from Brisbane, Australia, and go to LOPA.org, take 2 minutes and fill out the form, be a hero. LOPA helps these families, not only during the process, but and the families that are blessed enough to be recipients, but they help the families. They take care of them. They walk them through the process. Again, they're nonprofits. That's why we raise money for them every year. And if you met the people that I met that were alive because of these heroes, you'd go out and do it too. So anyway, I'm Woody Overton, your host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. And until next time or ever, don't let me catch you down on Murder by You. And shout out to Chase Tyler and Chase Tyler Band for our music. Love y'all. Peace.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to or during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?